At 3:47 p.m., on a perfectly clear Saturday in Yosemite National Park, an 8-year-old boy vanished 10 feet behind his father. No scream, no rustle in the bushes, no snap of a branch. 1 second he was there, crouching down to look at a piece of quartz on the side of the trail. The next, the trail behind his father was empty. His father called his name. Nothing answered. The forest, according to his account, had gone completely silent. That silence is what rangers remember most. This isn't one story. According to National Park Service records and decades of witness accounts, this has happened hundreds of times. People step just off the trail. They go behind a tree. They fall 2 seconds behind their group, and they are simply gone. And what happens next makes no sense at all. In 1969, in the Great Smoky Mountains, a 6-year-old boy vanished while playing hide-and-seek with his family. The area was sealed off within an hour. Green berets were brought in. Over 1,000 people searched. The weather, which had been clear all morning, turned violent in minutes. Torrential rain washed away any tracks. 3 days later, they found nothing. But here's what they won't put in the official brochure. The boy's father later claimed that during the search, several search dogs tracked his son sent to a small creek and then just stopped. They whined. They tucked their tails. They refused to cross. The handlers had to drag them. In another alleged account from 2017, outside Yellowstone, a 24-year-old hiker named Sarah told her boyfriend she was going to use the bathroom behind a large pine, just off the trail. He said it was maybe 15 feet away. He could still see her backpack. He looked at his phone for 4 seconds. When he looked up, the pine was there. The backpack was there. She was not. He called out. He thought she was joking. Then he walked to the tree. The ground behind it was soft pine duff. It should have shown footprints. There were none. He circled the tree, shouting her name. His voice sounded muffled. He said, like the trees were absorbing the sound. He called 911. Rangers were there in 20 minutes. They brought in a K9 unit. The dog took the scent from her jacket, walked to that pine tree, circled it twice, and laid down. The handler said he'd never seen that before. She was found 2 days later. Or rather, part of her story was found 7 miles away, on the other side of a ridge that would have required crossing a fast, waist-deep river and climbing 2,000 feet of loose scree. A terrain, according to one ranger, that a trained adult would struggle to do in a day. She had no shoes on. Her feet were clean, no cuts, no pine needles stuck to her socks. Her jacket was found folded neatly on a rock a quarter mile from her body. Folded, like someone had placed it there. This is the pattern that people who study these disappearances keep coming back to, and it's not the one you expect. First, the weather. Almost every single time someone vanishes in these cluster areas, Yosemite, Yellowstone, Great Smoky Mountains, Olympic Rocky Mountain National Park, the weather turns within an hour. Clear sky to violent thunderstorm. Not sometimes. Almost every time. Rangers in Yosemite have a saying, off the record, when the sky breaks, someone's gone. Second, the time. Late afternoon. Between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. That window accounts for an overwhelming majority of these cases. Third, the berry-picking effect. The person is often separated by a trivial distance. 3 feet, 10 feet. I just turned around. He was right behind me. The brain cannot process how fast it happens. There is no struggle. Fourth, the dogs. Search and rescue dogs are the best tool we have. They can track a scent for days. But in these specific cases, they fail in the same way. They lose the scent abruptly, as if the person was lifted off the ground, or they refuse to track at all. One retired handler I spoke with, who asked not to be named, told me his dog stopped at a boulder field in Yosemite and just stared into the trees, growling at nothing. He said the hair on his own neck stood up. And fifth, the most disturbing one, when they are found, if they are found in places that don't make sense. Children found on top of mountains they couldn't have climbed. Hikers found miles away with no memory of how they got there. People found without their shoes, but their feet uninjured. Clothes found neatly folded, or inside out. According to the accounts, some are found alive, but they don't remember. A little boy found in the Smokies in the 70s reportedly asked for his grandmother who had died years before. He said a man in a fur coat kept him warm. There was no man in a fur coat in those woods. Let's go back to Yosemite, to that father and his 8-year-old son. Let's call him Ethan. The details here come from the father's alleged account shared on a missing persons forum years later. It was mid-June. The mist trail, crowded. Hundreds of people. Ethan was a careful kid, his father said, not the type to run off. He stopped to look at a glittering rock. His father was maybe 6 feet ahead, talking to his wife. He turned around to tell Ethan to leave it. Ethan wasn't there. At first, his father laughed, thought he was hiding behind his mother. He wasn't. Then he felt that drop in his stomach. He shouted his name. People on the trail stopped and looked. For 10 minutes, they searched the immediate area. They looked behind every tree, under every bush. The trail is narrow there. There is a steep drop on one side, but it's fenced. A child couldn't have fallen without someone seeing. Then the forest went quiet. That's the phrase he used. The birds stopped. The wind stopped. Even the waterfall, which should have been roaring, sounded distant, muffled. He grabbed a ranger. The ranger's face changed when he heard where Ethan was last seen. According to the father, the ranger radioed something, and his voice was tight. He said, "We need canine here, now, within 30 minutes." The sky, which had been bright blue, was covered in dark clouds. Rain started hammering down, the kind of rain that makes you unable to see 10 feet in front of you. The search lasted 9 days. The largest in Yosemite that year. Helicopters with thermal imaging. Drones. Dogs. They found nothing. No shirt. No shoe. No rock that Ethan had been looking at. That rock was gone too. On the 10th day, a hiking couple found something. Not eaten. 3 miles away, in a boulder field that had already been searched twice. They found a small blue sneaker. Ethan's. It was placed on top of a flat boulder, laces tucked inside, perfectly clean, no mud, no rain damage, even though it had rained for 6 days straight. Ethan himself has never been found. When you ask rangers about this off the record, they will tell you about the quiet spots. Every major park has them, places where compasses spin, where GPS loses signal for no reason, where people report feeling watched. In Yosemite, it's around the Mirror Lake boulder fields. In Yellowstone, it's near the Black Canyon. In the Smokies, it's around the old logging trails near Klingman's Dome. The National Park Service doesn't officially acknowledge these zones. But if you look at a map of where people have vanished, they cluster. They don't scatter randomly. They cluster around granite, around boulder fields, around fast-moving water, and around old stories. Long before these parks were parks, the tribes who lived there had names for these places. In the Smokies, the Cherokee spoke of the Nanehi, the people who live in the rocks. Not spirits, people, who sometimes take children because they are lonely, who live in places where the world is thin. In Yosemite, the Miwok spoke of the spirits in the granite who don't like to be looked at directly. They said if you hear your name called in the woods and no one is there, you should never answer. Because if you answer, they know you can hear them. Most people laugh that off until they are in those woods, alone, at 4:30 p.m., and the forest goes silent. I want to tell you about a recording. This is not from a hiker. This is from a park employee. In 1978, a maintenance worker in Yellowstone was doing trail repair near Old Faithful. Late in the season, he had a handheld tape recorder to log his work. At 4:12 p.m., according to the timestamp on the tape, he stops talking about the trail. There's a long pause. Then he whispers, "Do you hear that?" On the tape, you can hear it, faintly, a child laughing. But there were no children in that area. The park was closed for the season. Then the man says, "Hello," louder. The laughing stops. Then you hear footsteps, not his. Too many, light, quick footsteps circling him in the leaves. He starts breathing hard. He says, "Who's there?" And then a voice, very clear, very close to the microphone, says his name. His first name, David. He drops the recorder. The tape runs for another 7 minutes. You can hear wind. You can hear him running. You can hear him sobbing. He was found 3 hours later by another crew, sitting in his truck, shaking. He refused to go back into that section of the park. He quit the next day. The tape was filed away and forgotten until a researcher found it in 2019. The Park Service has never released it publicly. The copy that circulates online is allegedly a dub. No definitive explanation was ever established for what is on it. If you go hiking this weekend, and millions of you will probably be fine. These disappearances are statistically rare, but the rangers I talked to gave me the same advice, and they all said it with the same serious face. Never hike alone. Never let your kids walk behind you. If the woods go silent, leave. Don't try to figure out why it's silent. If you hear your name called, and you know no one is there to call it, do not answer. And if you find a child's shoe, clean and neatly placed on a rock in the middle of nowhere, with no child attached to it, don't touch it. Call the rangers. And get out of that boulder field before the sky breaks. Because something in those parks is still taking people, and it has learned that we don't like to talk about it. What do you think takes them? Let me know in the comments. And if you've ever felt that silence in the woods, you were right to be afraid.